Ryan, thank you very much for having this conversation with me, coming on to the podcast. You're an interesting guy for me because I've had the fortunate front seat of watching your journey over the last few years, and we've also been in touch throughout both of our journeys in starting our own businesses and pursuing our own paths. I want to start this off with a question that I think you might have a good guess as to where I'm coming from and why I'm asking it. And that is, are you happy?
Um, yeah, I'm very happy. I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and I guess the reason why you ask is because when on my podcast I asked everyone as the very first question that same question. Um, I did at the time because I believed it set the standard for the type of conversation I was looking to have, but it also causes people to reflect on where they're at in their life. And so you asking me this now, it does the exact same thing. And lately I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I've actually already made it. And so to many people that will sound outrageous because I'm 28. Um, how could I have made it, right? But when I think about the start of the podcast, what I set out to do was to figure out one, what I wanted to do with my life, two, to a certain degree, do something that I enjoyed and loved doing every day, and mm, make earning from that not a problem. So that I wouldn't say financial freedom, that wasn't the goal, but to earn consistently good amount of money that, I can take my friends out to dinner if I like, or I can make sure my kids have what they, my kid has has what they need. Then add on top the fact that I've just gotten a dog, which is something I've been trying to convince my partner to get for like 8 years straight. Um, at this point, I'm really the only thing I'm still missing in my picture is buying a house. But yeah, in many ways, I've made it, and that correlates to me being happy. And now it's just kind of everything that comes on top of that is bonuses.
I really like that you've got a conscious idea as to what happiness looks like for you. Um, I do wonder because I'm going through a time where I'm going through like a tougher time in my life at the
Yeah.
moment, where I'm pursuing my own path, but things just aren't quite working out. So I'm not on that kind of high that you get when you do your own thing and it works and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, how much do you feel like your happiness depends on things external to you? Because you seem to talk about things that were outside of you.
Um, a lot. And I struggle to believe people who say they don't. If you can find that level of peace, go you. But I do think, I think that happiness is who you become on the pursuit of life. The reality is, though, if you're doing that, if you're pursuing whatever it is alone, it's going to be very boring, even if you get the money to whatever, get the Lamborghini or get the house or get the whatever you want. If there's no one there by your side, then what are you doing it for, in my view? And so things like taking my friends out to dinner, things like, I know the other day we bought a dishwasher and I just could. I didn't have to worry about that. That's not always been the case, right? Um, I don't really have to worry about paying rent anymore, this kind of stuff. Those are things which bring me a lot of peace and therewith a lot of happiness. I see the joy that I get from my dog. I see the joy that my child has from playing with the dog. Um, these things bring me happiness. And so it's not directly I earn money and therefore I am happy, but it is I get money and I can use that money as a means to do things that I really enjoy doing. And in the process, make sure that, everyone has a comfortable life. And I think the underlying tone here to your question is how far does that go? And so this is also something that I'm struggling with at the moment. I've now come to a point whereby, I'm good. Do I really need to go further? Do I really need to add 6 more clients to the roster? And yes, that will boost my average revenue drastically, blah, blah, blah. But is that going to, give me time? Is that going to allow me to take care of my kid in the morning? Is that going to allow me to go on an afternoon break to a coffee shop with her and drink a baby chino, right? Like these kind of things. That is, I guess, where it gets tricky. So yes, at first it is linked to external circumstances, but at some point that baseline is met. And how far above that baseline do you continue pressing at what cost?
3 years ago, you were a student at university, then you started a podcast, then you started your own content agency. It feels like for you, one thing I'm really interested by is just the sheer speed. There's just been everything's changed so quickly. And
Mm.
from the moment that I first met you, I remember 2 years ago, you were putting out a post looking for a part-time job. What is the bit in the background that isn't on LinkedIn or on your YouTube channel? What's the bit that people don't see in that sheer speed across that time?
Good question. Um, my partner would probably answer that question the best, but I think a lot of crying, a lot of what the heck am I doing? Even more so when we found out that Kira, my partner, was pregnant. Um, there was a small period in which or in which I had somewhat short of a breakdown and completely gave up on the path that I was on, and as a result ended up taking on a part-time job because I felt like, okay, I need money coming in now to pay for diapers, right? Like I'm not naive. And being in there for literally 3 months and absolutely hating my life 3 months in because it just wasn't for me. And so nothing against the 9 to 5. My best friends all have 9 to 5s and they love it, and that's fantastic, right? But for me, somehow I have something very innerly fixated against authority, or people telling me what to do and when to do it. Like it makes zero sense to me as to why you would come to an office from 9 to 5 if your productivity hours are from 1 to 7, so to speak. Like, why would I be there? It makes no sense. Um, and just having a real resistance against that not being in my place, which consequently made me more depressed, and then realizing this kid was on the way, and what example am I setting for her if I'm basically saying, well, as soon as life gets tough, give up on your dreams. And yeah, after that, things kind of falling into place. And so, but also not being afraid to say, you know what, fuck this. Like I think people spend too much time on giving something a go, right? You'll hear people that get a new job and they sit it out for at least a year. And I'm like, why? As in, I think your gut knows better than you do. So if after 6 months your gut is still saying, nah, I don't think this is for you, move on, right? And I guess that is, I suppose, to some degree, the job hopping trend that that everyone criticizes. But I think it's just one thing I definitely learned from constantly asking people how they found their passion is that it's much easier to figure out what you don't like. And you figure out what you don't like by rapidly testing stuff, right? And whatever that gut is telling you when you're trying out a new job or a new position or a new anything, if it's telling you, nah, this is not for it, that it's probably right. And even more so if after 6 months it's still telling you that's right. And then people will come to me with the argument of, oh yeah, but I'm making experience, or it's for a job, uh, and that looks good on my CV. Yeah, once the like now you see people who are not getting jobs despite having that experience, despite having that CV, because things have changed. It's no longer about what fancy titles you have on, or it's more about who you know and what you can deliver. Can you back up what you say you do? And kind of all of these realizations coming together for me behind the scenes led to eventually things falling into place. So being able to sit it out long enough despite crying, despite having breakdowns, and of course having a supporting partner. That was like, I can't understate that enough. There were plenty of times that I was going to throw in the towel and she pretty much said don't. And I think if she wouldn't have had the belief in certain situations, I probably would have given up much sooner. So
What do you think your partner Kira would have said about you in that period of time of your life?
um that I was lost but determined, hungry. Um, I think she would have said that I had seen there was another way. I just needed to find the people that would show me it was possible. And in the meantime, not sitting still and waiting for it to happen. Like, I know there's a whole movement on affirmations and stuff, but the reality is you can affirm all you want, but if you don't do anything, it's not coming, right? Um, unless you are extremely lucky. But I prefer to. It's funny. I have since I think I'm like since I was 13, I have as my WhatsApp status. Um, I don't believe in luck. I'd much rather create my own, and I think that's just something. For whatever reason, 13-year-old me thought that was great, and I've been living by that ever since.
One thing that when I look at what you're up to and what you're progressing with in your life is I reflect on my own life and I just feel like when I'm going through this journey of an entrepreneurial path and trying to pursue your own business, it is so hard in isolation. And then when I look at what you're up to, you're living in a van, traveling across Europe, you're doing that with your partner and your child while setting up your content agency. That's a lot. Could you talk to me about why you seem to pack so many things on top of each other? What is it that makes you compared to the average 9 to 5, as you mentioned, be so busy and from my point of view,
Yeah,
almost chaotic. If
yeah,
that was me, I would be overwhelmed, I think.
yeah. I get that. Um, I think I'm probably addicted to chaos to some degree. And so that's definitely growing up in a chaotic household. Like by the time I was 22, I'd moved 11 times. And that kind of translates into a lot of other stuff, right? So by no means am I saying my lifestyle is how everyone should live. This, like, also living in the van, as you'll tell, I'm now in a home. We ended up moving out because it was almost too chaotic to build a business. And so the van thing, however, for us, it was quite simple. It was either we do this now or we do it in 18 years when Haley is moved out, right? So the theory was at the point when Haley, my child, was born, we were like, okay, we technically have until she's 4 before she has to go to school, right? In the Netherlands, they go to school around 4 or 5. In Germany, it's slightly older, but and I don't know what it is in the UK, but it's more or less 4 or 5, right? Um, and so the moment she goes to school, traveling in a van becomes almost impossible, right? And the alternative, therefore, was okay, we do it once she leaves the home, which is like anywhere between 18 and 25 plus. So let's say, best case scenario, you're 18 years on. Like at that point, I hope to will have bought at least one house, right? Do I really want to be putting my house? Oh, I'm definitely not going to sell it. And if I need to put it up to rent to a bunch of Airbnbers, and that sounds like a lot of hassle, like realistically, do I think 18 years from now, am I going to do this? Probably not. And when that was wiped off the table, the realism that I really only have now to try this, or the alternative being I don't do it. And I guess that's what it's always been the case. I much rather have tried and failed than not have tried at all. And as a result, regret the fact that I didn't. Right. And so the van life is a great example. We ended up doing it for 7, 8 months. We bought a caravan, we fixed it up, ended up traveling. A lot of shit went wrong, which didn't help. As in, like, the car broke down fully and we were stuck in Portugal. By the way, not one of the worst places to be stuck in, but
Yeah, not
um,
that bad.
no, but
Could have been in England.
yeah, or France, to be fair. Like, we first time our car showed signs of struggle, we were in France and trying to find someone who spoke English in like the back ass of France. I'm not talking Paris or something, was almost impossible. In Portugal, we they were very helpful. Um, but yeah, then just, at the time I was filming a lot of content for myself. It was before my agency took a bit of a different turn, and that filming all of a sudden caused a lot of friction. So where before I would easily put out 1, 2 episodes or 4 episodes a month, all of a sudden I was struggling to really film one because it would take me so long to set up something in the caravan to make sure, Haley and Kira were gone, and like it just caused a lot of friction. And then being in a small space and you're kind of on top of each other, and then all of a sudden I was getting a lot of clients, which was awesome, but I was losing days traveling, right? And one of the standard things you hear people say is, well, I'd much rather be at the beach working than that I would back home in, I don't know, where are you from? Brighton, right? Brighton's actually quite pretty, but shitty Brighton. And I had that realization, right? I was sitting there and I'm like, yeah, but I'm now at the beach and I actually really want to see stuff. I don't want to be sitting here editing this project, but I want to go out and see, like, the equivalent back home here. I know literally everything here. And so I'm not interested by it. Like, there's nothing new for me to see, really. And therefore there's no real pressure or stress for me to, yeah, go and see stuff. And as a result, the van life ended up becoming a burden. And I tell that story because I know a lot of people will be like, oh, that's my dream too, right? And I'm saying that there is another side to this. And for some people it's still the dream. For me, it ended up being, I'm really happy we tried it. We still have the caravan. We, for example, just were away for the weekend, and we like to go away for extended periods of time, but with a very clear end date, right? And that's what works for us. And I think that is the important part. Yes, take inspiration from what other people do, but only take inspiration, right? I listen to a lot of stuff Alex Hormozy says. He's a smart guy. I'm not going to be working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, though, because one, I have a kid, two, I want to live, and three, I don't care about money as much as he does, right? But people will grip onto everything Alex Hormozy says to a T and think that that is what they must do or should do. Like we should just remove the concept of the word should altogether, right? And just take what you need from what people advise and apply it to your circumstance. And don't think anything is 100% the way you have to do anything.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier how people conform, they do what they should do, what they've been told to do, what they've been brought up to do.
Yeah.
Um, how do you feel in your own mindset and the way that you live your life that you feel is one fundamental difference to how other people see their lives? Because there's going to be so many people that look at what you do and the life that you've lived and think, I want that, but they won't get there. Um, what do you think that reason is, that difference between how you think and they think?
They probably care too much about what other people think. And are scared to fail. But a lot of the times you'll hear people say, you know, what if I publicly fail? Or what, in this fear of what society will say, right? This is something which society doesn't allow, this kind of stuff. But the reality is it's not society. There's a voice in your head a lot of the time, someone that you hear, and it could be a friend, it could be a teacher, it could be a parent. Someone is that voice in your head. And when you label that person, when you give them an identity, so in my case, a lot of the time, ironically, it's my grandma, right? And she very regularly strongly advised me to, take the 9 to 5, even though it's not for me. And I felt that it was not for me. And when I then realized, am I really going to let my grandma dictate my life? Like someone who grew up 70 years ago in a completely different, when there was no internet yet, right? Like when it wasn't possible to build a business online, am I really going to let her dictate how I live my life? Like I love her, don't get me wrong. She is fantastic, but she doesn't know better for my life than I do. And I think giving that person a name, and the flip side for me being what realizing very clearly what the alternative is, which was hating my life, like hating the fact that I had to go in a 9 to 5. And some people throw the kind of curveball at me. Okay, but now you're self-employed and you work all the time rather than just a 9 to 5. Yeah, but one, I love working, right? I love what I do. And two, I work when I want. And that is the difference for me, right? Yes, I work a lot more than if I just worked your standard 9 to 5. But if I want to go to a coffee shop in the afternoon on 2 o'clock on a Tuesday, I can. There's no one that can tell me no. And so giving that voice in your head that's telling you don't do it a name, and realizing that, are you really going to let that person dictate your life, combined with, what is it? The realizing what the alternative is. So for me, the fear of the alternative was much bigger than the fear of potentially failing at something publicly, right? Like, you'll hear people say, I'm not going to post on LinkedIn because what if no one likes it? How is that different to what you have now? Like, no one's liking your stuff now either. So, and it's only going to grow. It means the more you post, the more people start engaging with it, the more people start liking it. Where is the downside? Yes, you're gonna look cringe. So, like, I'm pretty sure Steve Jobs was also laughed at back in his garage when he was talking about building Mac. And not everyone's gonna be Steve Jobs, but the point is, like, is that really something to end up living a miserable life on? From my eyes, again, if you love the 9 to 5, do your thing, man. I don't care. But if you have the desire to do something more, I think it is a disservice to yourself to not give that a shot. You are literally you're taking over someone else's life expectancy and putting it as your own.
I'm at a point in my life where success is something that's inherently selfish. It's it's all about me and what I
Mhm.
want to do. And I wonder with you, given that you're also in your 20s, you're also pursuing your own path, and you have a really clear idea as to what success means to you. How has fatherhood changed that for you?
Let me throw the ball back at you. What do you think success is?
At the moment, I feel like I'm still working it out. I wouldn't say that I have a very clear idea as to what success is in my mind, but for the very short term, it's to make this podcast a great success, to be able to live off of it,
Yeah,
and to be able to look after the people around me in a way that I'm not stressed the whole time about, trying to make it work.
yeah,
Um, and financially at a point where I'm not rich, but I don't have to think twice about taking my partner out for dinner if that's
yeah,
what I want to do.
yeah. It's too vague. And so what I mean by that is, at what point do you say, I'm now financially okay, right? I think when you're able to give that a figure, you realize that it's probably a lot lower than you have in your mind. And so, as an example, pretty early on in the podcast, I ended up getting a sponsor on board. We agreed to a sponsorship of $1,500 a month. Keep in mind, at that time, I was living in the home of my girlfriend's mom. And so we didn't have rent. And all of a sudden, I went from pretty much nothing to $1,500 a month. You could say that is financially safe, right? That's financially stable. And making so that would be my, I guess, advice to you: make it more specific, put a number to it. It could be something crazy. If you think you need 3, 4, 5,000, fine, but at least give yourself a goal to work towards, because then you start getting a concrete number and you can build on that. The success aspect for me at the beginning was never clear either, in the sense, and I'm not sure it is it is yet at all. I just my I guess I suppose that's what I was saying at the start of, like, I've made it. Success would have been that the podcast helps me figure out what I wanted to do with my life, right? That was the goal of the podcast, and arguably that's where I am at now, and that is thanks to that podcast, right? And so it wasn't let me earn 10 grand a month. It wasn't let me have a car. Wasn't even let me travel in a van around Europe. It was just, okay, let's figure out what I want to do with my life. Like, and strategies to get to what I want. Because I don't know about you, but one of the main issues in the very luxury world that we live in, especially in the Western world, is the reason why so many of us struggle to figure out what we want to do is because we have too much choice, right? You can do everything, and because you can, you freeze and you don't know what you want to do, right? But at some point, someone broke it down for me and said, if you look at the whole span of your career, and I realize this diverges from the question you asked, but I'm getting back there, I promise. If you look at the whole span of your career, you have 40 years, right? If you break those down into like 8 to 10 year slots, you could dedicate something you really want to do to that specific time, right? Whereby it makes sense in the age you are at. So in your case, starting a podcast in your 20s is a fantastic idea. I'll explain why. Let's say you're 15 years older. Hopefully for you at that point, you will have a partner and maybe even have your first kid already, right? Or maybe even have bought a house already. I don't know what will change in 15 years, but let's say you have a kid and a partner and you're still renting, right? Do you really think you're gonna then be like, oh, let me just, you know, put income aside and let me give podcasting a go? I'm gonna go from earning whatever I would in a job equivalent to I'm gonna earn nothing and I'm gonna try build this podcast thing. Like the reality of you doing that and therewith putting your partner either in full responsibility to earn everything for the family or the risk that you're not able to pay for diapers or food for your kid. Like you're not going to do that, not realistically. And so all of a sudden, right, there is only really one option to do this now, right? Only now you have the time to do podcasting when you have little to no risk. Like, why wouldn't you start a business in your 20s? If you fail, no one cares anyway. You're 20, people be like, nah, right? And if you succeed, great. Then you're a success story in Forbes 30 under 30, right? Like, but then there, yeah, but I need experience because I know Simon from 20 years ago who grew up in the boomer time period, whereby there was no other option, whereby the internet didn't exist, said I need to, and therefore I'm going to get a job. Like, yeah. And so that was a bit of a tangent. When you as far as parenting, it puts all of the other stuff, the chasing money, which even though I don't think I was ever hungry for that, I got even less hungry. And so what becoming a parent has done for me is basically that I focus more on the things I didn't really love doing anyway, right? I had my partying years, they were over, but I was still somewhat regularly going out partying. A kid comes into the equation, all of a sudden you've got a really good excuse as to say, sorry guys, I'm going to call it a night early because I'm still going to have a screaming baby next to me at 7 o'clock in the morning trying to get me to get up. And to be honest, I don't want to do that hungover, right? And you go on more walks because that's where she falls asleep in the stroller, which is good for you anyway. You exercise because you want to be able to lift her up and throw her and not be a fat little son of a bitch sitting at home on a chair who can't even lift his own kid up. Like those are that's in a very to compensate for my for my little ramble before and to summarize it very quickly. The difference it's made is it's given me a purpose to work much harder for, and she's made me say no more to stuff I didn't really like doing anyway.
That's wonderful. That's really nice. Ryan, thank you very much for coming on. You've got a brilliant perspective on seeing the big picture, which when you're building something is very easy to be stuck in the trenches. So thanks for the perspective that you've given me, and thanks for coming on to the pod.
My pleasure, man. Good luck.
Thanks, man.